Why is it that Japanese wrestlers never make it in the United States, in America? For the most part, if not for the majority, if not for all of it, that Japanese wrestlers never really make it. They never get beyond a certain level in the United States. Guys from Japan, wrestlers from Japan, and I'm talking about actual Japanese wrestlers, born and raised in Japan, wrestled in Japan, and then traveled to the United States, perhaps got signed by the WWE. I was watching NXT TakeOver, which actually happened just a few days ago, September 11, 2014, just last week. NXT TakeOver was a big event for the WWE, for NXT especially. It's one of their once every 3 months type of special event, kind of big matches. You got championship matches. It's just a high profile event, and they debuted Kenta. Yes, Kenta finally made an appearance, stepped inside the ring, and he actually appeared in front of the audience, and he is now officially a part of the WWE roster. And it basically went down in a very disappointing way. It was probably one of the most disappointing debuts ever, the most horrible debuts I've ever seen in terms of debuting a character. So basically, if you haven't seen it, I highly suggest you guys check it out. Kenta debut in WWE NXT. And there's so many things that went wrong with this debut. There's just so many little things that irked me and are just negative signs, just horrible things that it is not a good prediction of what's going to happen to his career in the WWE. Right off the bat, it just rubbed people the wrong way, it gave people a bad impression, and it just kind of deteriorated Kenta's image. And I knew exactly what they were going to do even before it happened. So what happened was, you got William Regal. He was the acting, I guess, general manager or something like that. He was an authority figure with a suit and everything. William Regal comes out, stands in the middle of the ring, and introduces Kenta. They air a video package right before he comes out, a video package of Kenta, and he's footage of him in being signed, and Hulk Hogan introducing him back in Japan when they announced his signing with the WWE. They showed pictures of him and Triple H taking photos together, and it was very professional, and it seemed like a big deal. But when Kenta finally came out, things started to go wrong. Kenta was wearing a suit, so of course immediately I knew he wasn't going to be in a match, and that was number one mistake. That was mistake number one. I thought they were just going to give him a match, an immediate match right there. Just throw him out there, give him a match right off the bat. His debut match, his debut moment, where he can show off his moves, he can show off his athleticism, at least show something interesting, something, because Kenta is known for his in-ring work the best. He is best known for his athleticism, his talent, his actual matches, his moves. He's Kenta. He's a pro wrestler. He's not known for, he's wearing a suit, he goes to the ring, and then of course he had to cut a promo. They made him cut a promo. But for the most part, promos are, of course, the number one way somebody gets over. It's, well, not the number one way, but it's definitely one of the most important aspects in WWE, in American WWE environment. You gotta have the promo. I didn't know how well he could talk on the mic, and he wasn't very good. So there was a mistake number two. Making Kenta cut a promo right off the bat. That was a horrible mistake. That was a terrible thing. Whoever decided that decision. Kenta doesn't cut great promos. When you're cutting a promo, and it's even worse than Roman Reigns. Because the problem is that Kenta isn't great at speaking English. He tries, and he's picked up the language a little bit, but he struggles to enunciate and pronounce these words, and he's very slow in the way that he talks. He's got the thick Japanese accent, so it just comes across as he's struggling to speak a little bit. And the crowd went from very excited when they announced him, they aired a video package, and Kenta comes out. There was a big warm reception. It was a warm reception from the audience. He was over. They cheered him and they chanted Kenta, and it was such a big deal. And then Kenta started talking, and it was the end right there. He was cutting the and then the people started booing a little bit. They were like, oh. You could hear the collective sigh in the audience, and just the facepalm experience, and I was just facepalming myself. It was cringe-worthy. It was incredibly grating to see that. It was just so bad. Because again, Kenta is not a promo guy. He is not a promo guy. He doesn't cut promos. He is a wrestler. His actions in the ring, his wrestling matches speak for themselves. But the WWE had to make him cut a frickin' promo. And the main purpose for the promo is to basically just announce that his name is being changed. That's right, they're changing his name from Kenta to Hideo Itami, I think, or Itani. So it's a two-name, so the typical two-name that WWE wrestlers get. You know, like Justin Chadwell, or, you know, Mason Ryan, or, you know, Alex Riley, you know, John Cena. You know, that's typical two-name experience. I don't know what Kenta's real name is. If that is his real name, then okay. But it just feels like WWE wants to have a trademark name as usual, and they're not using Kenta. It's very interesting because in the back of my head, I'm always comparing Kenta a little bit to CM Punk. CM Punk got a chance to keep his name. He was always CM Punk. Even in the indies, he was CM Punk. So CM Punk got a chance to keep his name from the indies that made him famous. And now you're gonna erase all that, the WWE, erase the Kenta, the Kenta label, and then put him as Hideo Itami, or Itani, you know, two-name Japanese name. I guess we should be used to this changing of a wrestler's name from whatever they were in the indies, like, you know, Pac, P-A-C. He was changed to Adrian Neville. And there's so many other examples. There's so many wrestlers that they've done this to. It's not like Kenta's the first time. But it's just the typical WWE way of, we gotta own everything, you know, regarding the character. We gotta kind of own the guy's name. We gotta own his likeness, and we gotta own his, you know, legally own his name. And I don't know. I don't know how CM Punk got away with it. I have no idea how CM Punk was able to skate by and like kind of, you know, pass through the WWE creative name. I never really understood that, but it was definitely good for Punk. And there's another thing with Punk, is that when Punk debuted way back in, God, I want to say 2006 on ECW. Do you guys remember when he debuted on ECW? It's not his first match with the WWE. He's been with them for a while, but as an official character, as an official member of the roster. Yeah, Punk debuted, and he had a match. He had a match, I guess, against what? Justin Credible? And he had a pretty good match, solid match. The crowd was into it. The crowd was really into it. And that was a ECW episode that was, you know, I mean, it was notable that he debuted in it, and it was warmly received, being the indie guy, and people kind of in the audience were cheering his name, and they kind of already knew who he was because it, you know, it was Smart Mark fans. And this NXT takeover, so many years later, what, about, you know, 8 years later with Kenta, and it was a similar kind of thing, except that he didn't have a match. He just debuted with a suit and he cut a promo, and they should have just thrown him out there with, an opponent and have him, give him a match. Just have him, defeat his opponents and have him show off his moves. But it's also interesting that, I'm comparing him to CM Punk, the guy who essentially, like, ripped off his finisher, the GTS, and his moves and the kicks and the combos that he does. And then you have 8 years later, Kenta debuting the guy that invented these moves, the guy who invented the GTS, the go to sleep, and the crowd was chanting GTS to him as well, towards Kenta. GTS, GTS, some people in the audience. That was interesting. I don't even know what Kenta's finishing move is now. It's such a bizarre set of circumstances. You have CM Punk leaving earlier in the year, and then now the guy who invented the GTS, the originator, the guy who actually created it, and Daniel Bryan's Busaiku knee kick, is debuting. The Japanese guy who innovated these moves is it's kind of like you're hiring somebody that probably should have been with the company a long time ago, and because this guy was the real deal back in the day anyway. And now he's a lot older now. It's been 8 years since CM Punk debuted, and now you finally have Kenta. And I find it so bizarre how I don't even know if Kenta has a chance, to be honest with you. Because, again, his promo wasn't great. It was very awkward and kind of badly delivered. And the crowd even turned against him a little bit, like he can't speak English that well. This is why Japanese wrestlers never make it in America. This is why, the Japanese puroresu guys and just foreign wrestlers in general, especially if they can't speak English properly, promo is very important. And you take a look at other examples. You take a look at guys like Great Khali and Rusev, and these guys that have a very thick accent, they don't speak that much. Kenta is right up there in terms of kind of having a bad accent. He's not completely unintelligible, where it's like you can't even understand what he's saying. But I can't imagine him cutting like 10-minute promos like The Rock or CM Punk or guys who can actually speak. Bray Wyatt. These guys are amazing on the mic. And Kenta's not even as good as somebody like, Zack Ryder, somebody like that, Kofi Kingston, in terms of his mic skills. I'm just talking about mic skills. He in terms of his promo, it's not that good. So I can't imagine Kenta ever really getting beyond a certain level. I don't know what the future holds for Kenta. The Ascension came out in the segment, and they were pissed off because they lost the match, so they wanted to have a rematch against the Dragon Luchadors, I think. It was Kalisto and Sin Cara were able to become the new tag team champions. That was a very big moment. That was nice. I didn't really expect that. Sin Cara and Kalisto, the new NXT tag team champions, beating the Ascension for the titles. But the Ascension were pissed off, and it was two of them, and they were like, man, we want a rematch, Regal, and they tried to attack Kenta or whatever. Kenta did his thing too. He did a few kicks, kicked him out of the ring, and it was like Kenta looked dominant, and he looked impressive. Like, oh shit, like Kenta's finally. He actually did a few moves, but it was just, I don't know. It wasn't well done. It just wasn't a well done segment. It was awkward. I had to kind of cringe and fast forward through the awkwardness. It was just so not how you debut somebody. And this is why Japanese wrestlers never make it in America. This is why they never get over. Because if you take a look in the past, especially, you take a look at past Japanese wrestlers, you take a look at guys like Taka Michinoku and Tajiri. Even Tajiri, never really had many promo time. He wasn't like a hot promo cutter. All these guys, they just never make it because of their promo or lack of promo, and they just can't cut a good solid promo. And that's what connects people to the fans. That's what connects wrestlers to the audience. That's how they get over. if you can speak, and you can speak English in a very convincing way, in a very confident way, and you don't stumble or mumble your words, and you don't have a thick accent. Even if you do have an accent, I'm trying to think of a wrestler that has a thick accent that still got over, that was still able to... I mean, Cesaro's pretty over, Cesaro has a slight accent, I guess, but even him, I mean, he's, more well-known right now, he's more popular, people knew him from ROH, and, it was just, it's a different feeling with, he's European, just a different feeling with Cesaro. Yeah, it's just not the same. I mean, you gotta be able to speak English on point, you gotta be able to enunciate your words and clarify, and your vocal projection and the way you speak and your confidence, you gotta be able to have that promo mic skills. And unfortunately, it just seems like Japanese wrestlers don't have that. They have good promo cutters, but they speak in Japanese, like they can... I remember this guy from the 90s, I forget his name. Chris Jericho used to work for him at Sushi Onita? Yes, Onita from Japan, and he was great. He was a great promo cutter. But he didn't speak English. He was good at cutting promos in Japanese. And it just doesn't work if you can't speak English in America, and it just doesn't, I don't know. It just doesn't work. And that's why Japanese wrestlers never make it in the United States, and I feel bad for Kenta because I'm sure they're going to try, Triple H and Vince, and they're going to give him a chance for sure, but I hope the only way they can salvage Kenta, the only way that they can save him and make him go over as a wrestler in the WWE is to give him great matches. Give him the best opponents, have him be in 5-star matches all the time consistently. Like a Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan was able to become great in the WWE by having great matches all the time. And it's not like a CM Punk situation, CM Punk, he does have his matches, and he's good in the ring and everything, but he can cut a promo as well. He looks a certain way, he looks different, the American crowd can get behind him a little bit more, and he's more relatable, for lack of a better word, and he can cut a promo. That's the number one thing, is cutting a promo is very important, and Kenta just doesn't seem to have that, and that's a very bad sign, and I don't know what they're going to do with Kenta. I don't have high hopes. The moment that they signed him earlier this year, and it's amazing, it was only just a few months ago when he was having that tryout, the tryout that's like Solid Monster was talking about, how it was like so secretive and discreet and everything, and just like that, he was signed to the WWE. It was just fascinating. It's very, very different in the States compared to just the athletic, puroresu. And you think of a guy like Prince Devitt. Prince Devitt made it in Japan because of his in-ring skills. It's more about the in-ring in Japan. It's more about in-ring talent and not so much about, having a promo. So it's very different already. The culture is very different already of pro wrestling. The way it's presented in Japan is just more athleticism in the promotion. It's more about having great matches. In the States, it's very, very promo-oriented, and it's going to be very, very tough for Kenta to get over, or any Japanese wrestler. Will there ever be a Japanese wrestler, a real Japanese wrestler, to ever, really become, a top star? A main event player? A championship material? I don't know. I don't know. If they can't cut a promo, it's going to be real tough. The Great Muta did well, I think, in WCW way back, 20 plus years ago, in the early 90s, but I mean, he had a mouthpiece, and they're trying to copy that now with Sanada, the great Sanada, and James Storm, and they're trying to do that a little bit, but even that one is not as hot. It's kind of a rip-off of a gimmick from 20 years ago, so it's kind of like, ugh. Yeah, Sonata, there's another guy who's a perfect example of kind of a guy who just doesn't cut promos and stuff. Don't cut enough promos, you're not as, you know, you're not, he's not Austin Aries. Austin Aries is amazing on the mic, but he's also amazing in the ring. Sonata is pretty damn good in the ring, but he's not amazing on the mic. And that's a big problem with these guys, with the Japanese wrestlers and foreign wrestlers in general who don't speak English that well. That's the #1 wall that they gotta overcome, and it's really, really tough.